Hello, this is Dr. Paul Cottrell, and I'm doing a recording on January 19th. We're going to be going over a lot of different interviews, the actual panels for Davos. I'm going to try my best to cover this in its totality, but I'm a one-man show, and it's going to be hard to do. So, please watch episode 15. I go into detail about the global risks report by Davos that was released by the World Economic Forum. So take a look at that, watch it. I think it'll give you a good perspective. Now, I'm going to go to an interview that took place recently by CNBC. And this was 3 hours ago, dealing with Ian Bremmer, and also an interview that was 2 hours ago with Kenneth Rogoff. But before we do, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the great products that I offer. This will help to boost up your immune system and slow down the aging process. So please get the Max 35 or the Max 14. Both are very high quality. Max 35 is 35 parts per million. Max 14 is 14 parts per million, or Cleanse, which is 30 parts per million. They're at different price points based on your affordability, but they will help to boost up your immune system and slow down the aging process. How it works is that it neutralizes your oral cavity and your oral pharynx, maintain your mucosal barrier, and help the health of your epithelial cells. By doing that, you are improving your immune system, your innate immune system. Also, by improving your oral cavity, you're reducing plaque formation, because when you neutralize the bacteria, then you're reducing the chances of that bacteria getting into your bloodstream and producing plaque formation. So it's really important with good oral hygiene and boost up that immune system. Take Max 35, Max 14, or Cleanse, very high quality. Take a teaspoon a day every day. If you're not feeling well, or someone around you is not feeling well because of the cold season, take a tablespoon or two a day. Gargle, swish in your mouth and gargle about 20 seconds and then swallow it. It's really, really simple to do. So please go to my store, take it every day, teaspoon a day. I've been doing this protocol for over 5 years, every day. So it's a great way to boost up that immune system. And get the probiotics. You can get it in powdered form or veggie cap form. And with a good probiotic, you're improving your skin, that your brain function will improve. You're going to be able to sleep better. You're going to be able to consolidate memory, detoxify your central nervous system. Your metabolism will improve. You'll bring down inflammation at the gut level. You'll improve that concentration of IgA, which is a type of antibody. You'll improve your mucosal layer. You're going to improve your ability to absorb nutrients, and your metabolism will improve. Get lots of benefits by having a good gut biome. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the probiotics either in powdered form or in veggie cap form. And stack it with the multivitamin. This multivitamin is easy to digest and has all the multivitamins that you need for proper enzymatic activity. They are cofactors to help to change the conformation of your enzymes so they perform better. So your cells perform better, you have better metabolism, and by having your cells performing better, your organ systems will perform better. It's an easy to digest multivitamin, and you can stack it with the probiotics. That's the foundation. And the first pillar on top of that foundation to slow down the aging process is to take the Max 35, Max 14, or Cleanse. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Use discount 5, you get $5 off any order. With that, I'm going to start my commentary on the interview with Ian Brenner.
Smart founders know something most people miss. Get your domain name even if you're not ready to launch your business. With Wix, you can grab yours now and then get to work. Here's why it matters. Back in 2019, I had this killer business idea, but I delayed getting the domain name because I wasn't ready. That was a huge mistake. Someone else grabbed.
With me a man who did predict, as part of his global risk, the fact that we are going to see a U.S. political revolution as the #1 risk, and of course, the Monroe Doctrine as another key risk that the global economy was faced with. And what happens to Europe? Ian Brenner, thanks very much for joining us here on CNBC today. It's great to have you back. Well, all of those risks even more amplified today.
Yeah, it is that way. And the United States is driving global uncertainty today. It's not conflict in the Middle East. It's not what Xi Jinping is up to. It's what's happening in the White House domestically in the U.S. in a political system that's much more divided and dysfunctional, and internationally in a global system where the United States is ripping up the old rules, whether it's collective security or free trade or rule of law, all the things that the Europeans really need, all the things the Europeans rely on. And now today, this week, they feel like they can't get them from the United States.
Is it the end of NATO?
If Trump persists in requiring control of Greenland, it is the end of NATO.
No, I totally disagree. It is total. I totally disagree. NATO in its totality needs the United States. All right? There's no real security of NATO without the United States. And of course, we're going to want that military projection. So even if we took Greenland, which I don't think we will, but even if we did, we would still maintain NATO. Now, the Europeans may be upset, but who really cares? They've been living high on the hog. They've been riding our coattails for too long. We've been subsidizing their social programs because we bolstered up NATO. And they weren't even willing to really fight against Russia. Germany helped Russia by making sure that the pipeline was built and they were getting the energy. They cared more. Germany cared more about its energy policy than it was about Ukraine and the expansionism of Russia. No, Ian's wrong on this.
It's very unpopular in the United States. It's unnecessary for U.S. national security. The Danes are a very close ally, or have been, and they're willing to provide whatever national security access the Americans need. But Trump has decided that's not what he wants. What he wants is his name.
In terms of the Danish, close American ally, yeah, but like, how strong are they? They're not that strong. They're not Germany. They're not France. They're not England. I mean, let's wake up here. It's about magnitude, too.
On the territory. And look, historically, he has been very successful putting his brand on many things, on TV shows, on buildings, on the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C., but on foreign territory is not one of them. And Denmark and the European allies strongly oppose.
If you're China today, what do you think Xi Jinping is thinking at this point in time?
Well, he just had a day with Mark Carney, the Canadian Prime Minister. That was a relationship that was considerably worse a year ago than it is today. Most of the reason for that is because of the breakdown in the U.S.-Canada relationship. We are seeing India. Modi has stabilized this relationship with China to a significant degree. I think he would have done that anyway, but certainly the fact that the U.S.-India trade relationship still is not done, the Indians are feeling that the Americans are less reliable, is a motivating factor to stabilize the relationship with China. Long-term, America's tactical unilateralism is a benefit to the Chinese. America is the most powerful country in the world. That's true. But a return to the law of the jungle does not work for America because Trump is not the most powerful leader. Xi Jinping is. I mean, Trump has two different modes of foreign policy. He's got the FAFO mode, fool around and find out, which you get if you're Venezuela and Ukraine. He's got the taco mode, Trump always chickens out, which you get if you're Russia or you're China. Right now, Trump believes that the Europeans are FAFO. And the Europeans need to convince Trump that they are actually taco. And that is going to require both military response and economic response that is strong, unified, and credible. We will see this week what we get.
Retaliatory tariffs?
Certainly that should be a component of that if the Europeans want to be treated credibly by the United States.
All right, now I want to play the interview with Rogoff.
Momentum, acceleration, embrace the pursuit. David Yurman Chevron Collection.
Let's talk a little bit about India. The Prime Minister making it very clear that the government intends to continue to double down on deregulation, on the ease of doing business, to try and draw in foreign direct investment. We've got a whole bunch of Indian states here, the largest ever representation in Davos, trying to draw in investors. What do you make of the India story?
Well, I don't think there's any question that India has been the most successful country, large country, the last several years. It's had the highest growth rate. I think those numbers are real. On the other hand, the challenges are profound. I mentioned all the workers coming into the labor force. I mean, India has not been able to employ them all. A lot of them, young men, young women, are still forced into subsistence farming. But on the other hand, there are parts of India that are growing very well. I mean, the relationship with Trump has been disappointing. I mean, India is our ally, and so why are we, putting on punitive tariffs on India?
Not the only ally that is putting punitive tariffs.
No, worse, I think, than a lot of countries. So, but no, I mean, I think India benefits from countries want to protect themselves against China. So I think the India story continues, and it's great. Some of the deregulation, excuse me, some of my Indian scholar friends complain that there's never enough. But I think compared to 10 years ago, things are really looking brighter.
For more news and updates, all you need to do is follow CNBC TV 18 on all of our digital platforms.
Largest customers, wholesale customers in mainland China are US companies.
Adobe Acrobat Studio is on Neo. What's a PDF Spaces with AI do? Your fields voice sitting next to ease. Adobe Express knows it means. Camera dockings and has to share every page, every doc, everything's right there. Now you can do that with the all new Acrobat.
The three of you.
There's a larger video I wanted to play with her.
Let's talk a little bit about India. The Prime Minister making it very conversations continue here at Davos 2026. As I've been pointing out, this is a Trump Davos. President Trump is going to be here. He's going to be speaking at the World Economic Forum. He's going to be meeting with leaders from Europe, and he's doubling down on his ambition to get Greenland. That's just one of the issues up for debate and contention here. What about the global economy? 3%, 3.2%, that's the expectation that we're working with. And so far, the economy has been resilient. Stock markets have been fairly resilient as well. Joining us as always here in Davos for a global check and a pulse read is Kenneth Rogoff. Professor Rogoff, always a pleasure. Many thanks for joining us here on CNBC TV. It's great to have you back in Davos.
Great to be here and a pleasure to see you again.
So let me start with the Trump question. This is a Trump Davos, as I pointed out. What is the expectation? What do you anticipate he's likely to say?
I mean, I live in the United States. Every day he comes up with something new. When he invaded Venezuela, I woke up and said, well, I'm glad he didn't invade Harvard. You just don't know.
And Venezuela, no one's talking about you.
It's incredible. I mean, he invades that, he sort of says he's gonna run Venezuela, and they moved on to the next issue. It's remarkable. And I think there will be a next issue. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he announced the new Fed chair here. That would be possible. Who knows? I mean, he'll find something, but I think he's come here to buy Greenland. I think that's what his ambition
He's
is.
doubling down on it.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I don't exactly understand the purpose or the dynamics around it. I mean, that's another story, but I've been coming to Davos for 25 years now. I have never seen the Europeans so upset. I mean, when Putin invaded Ukraine, they were very upset. This is a whole nother level. He's invading Greenland and you're 56,000 people. I mean, then he's going to take Switzerland. Then he's going to let Putin take the Baltic. Then he's going to let Putin take Poland. Then he's going to, take Spain. I mean, it's just, absolute frenzy. They're hysterical.
Well, I would imagine that the reaction is, in your words, as you point out, hysterical on the European side. But the tariff question at this point, and we don't know which way the Supreme Court is going to rule, or whether we will have a Supreme Court ruling that coincides with Davos. Irrespective of the way the Supreme Court rules, do you believe that tariffs are here to stay in some form or fashion?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's no question about that. If the Supreme Court rules strongly against Trump, and I think it will be more mildly against Trump, but even if strongly against Trump, there are other things he can do. But I will say that this is a very clever move by Trump at the Supreme Court, because the whole debate there is that Congress has the right to set taxes. What are you, President Trump, doing setting tariffs, which is a tax, even if he denies it? And he says, his lawyers say, tariffs are an essential tool in foreign policy. Foreign policy is presidential first. And by doing this Greenland maneuver, I need tariffs so that I can take Greenland, which we need for national security. And this is also directed at the Supreme Court.
Well, we cannot preempt what the court will do, but you talked about the Fed chief, and you're one of the signatories of a letter that's been written by all central bankers, including, of course, central bankers outside of the U.S., talking about the need for central bank independence. This is DOJ investigation.
Dangerous rhetoric, violence, and terror attacks. Jews are being targeted, but UJA is here, securing 32
DOJ investigation into the central bank's operations in the U.S. And we saw the markets react to that. But what do you believe will be the medium-term to long-term implications of how this plays out on central bank?
And music was a very
I think it's important to understand that both sides in the U.S., the progressives, the left, the Democrats, and I want to call them MAGA Republicans, neither of them like central bank independence. The Biden administration was pushing the Federal Reserve to do social justice, the environment, inequality, far outside its remit and distracted from its main problems. And I think they were, if I teach at Harvard and I talk to these progressive intellectual leaders, and they would like to bring the Fed back into the Treasury, be able to control it. And Trump does for completely different reasons. I mean, Fed independence is a pretty new thing. I actually think I wrote the first paper on it 40 years ago, and there weren't independent central banks. And I think it's worked very well, but it's fragile. And so the central bankers are defending it fiercely. And I think the DOJ investigation of Powell, it's not just about Powell. He's going to be able to appoint Powell's replacement. Powell will no longer be chair, but the new chair, whoever it is, needs to get other votes. He can't command the Fed by himself. So I think Trump is showing all the governors, I can find something on you also. You want to vote against me? This is what's going to happen. So I think it's meant to provoke other resignations sooner than otherwise. This is part of a process of taking over the Fed. And needless to say, I'm sorry for the politically incorrect phrase, but this is banana republic stuff. I mean, this is what you see in an emerging market with weak institutions, Erdogan in Turkey tried this for a long time. He fired one central banker, then another central banker, and another central banker every time they tried to lower interest rates. And of course, inflation went through the roof. I don't think inflation is going to go through the roof under Trump. Let me be clear. It's a slow crawl that'll go up, but it's a big mistake. But I will say he's not stupid.
We need to build up our economic clustering, and that's the reason why we have the tariffs. On top of, there is more pernicious activity in terms of inflation because of the failed policies of the Federal Reserve by lowering rates too much and not controlling inflation during Biden's administration. We're still feeling the effects of it. We're still feeling the effects of inflation is transitory by Janet Yellen and Chairman Powell. They misread the data and they didn't do shock therapy when they needed to. And that's the reason why we have a problem with the real cost of goods right now. Because once you bake in inflation into a good, it's very hard for it to come back down. They made a mistake and they weren't held accountable. It has nothing to do with Trump's tariffs. Now, what Trump's tariffs will do is bring back manufacturing and have an economic prowess and lead to economic clustering, which is super important, especially in a war effort.
He understands it. I really do. But in Trump's mind, it's a small price to pay for winning the midterms. Near term, getting interest rates down probably helps for a little while, maybe even a couple of years. In his mind, winning the midterms is all about
by bringing down the interest rates too low, it's going to hit inflation.
DEI, foreign policy, and he thinks he's the best, and the Democrats are awful, and you need to give him power. If we have to have some extra inflation, I don't care. I mean, dare anyone read into his mind. But I think he understands it's a risk, and he thinks it's a reasonable risk given the stakes.
Well, speaking of the Fed, we don't know, but it's been speculated that perhaps an announcement could be made here in Davos, or even right after President Trump departs from Davos. Do you have a guess on who could replace Jerome Powell?
I mean, I had thought it was 80%.
Probably the Rick
asset, who I think is a very good economist, by the way. A lot of my colleagues don't like him because they think he's too Trumpy, but I think we're going to get someone Trumpy. And Hassett is actually quite a good economist, and I think he'd be fine in the job. So that said, Trump made this announcement. I love you, Kevin. You're so good on TV. But when you're at the Fed, you're never on TV. I want to see you on TV. I'm sorry. Yeah. But this is what you just never know what he intends. But it could be Kevin Warsh, who
Rick Brenner.
Yeah, I mean, Kevin Warsh would be a very strong appointment. Also, there's one or two other names. I have no idea. I mean, look, Trump is the master of theater. This is one of his big announcements. He's making the most of it. But I may be wrong. I still bet on Hassett.
On Kevin Hassett as the next Fed chief. But let's talk about rates, because you said that it is in his interest to ensure that rates are lower than where they are currently. But what does that signal then to the market if he does, in fact, kind of impinge on the independence and drive down rates further?
So a very basic point that is hard to explain, but I'm going to do my best, is the Federal Reserve controls the one-day interest rate. That's all it controls. It doesn't control what mortgage rates are. It doesn't control what car loans are. Those rates depend on the market. The market thinks about, well, you're cutting rates today, but you shouldn't. Eventually, inflation's going to go up. I'm not going to make a 10-year loan at a lower interest rate and inflation's going up. So when he pushes rates down too hard, too fast, the longer rates that we care about actually go up. And so that's the tension. But that can take time. He's looking at the midterms. For Trump, this is, an existential threat. My goodness, if the Democrats won big enough in the Senate and the House, they could really impeach him for real. I don't think that's going to happen, but he certainly couldn't get everything he wants. I mean, right now in the tariff, let's take that as an example. if Congress was saying, wait a second, this is our right to raise taxes. You can't do this. We object to this. They would be able to rein him in, but the Republicans control Congress. They're not doing that. So for him, the midterms is just everything. Does he have 3 more years or does he have 1 more year? And so for him, lowering interest rates, it's probably going to boost the economy. And in fact, I would say confidently, near term, you boost the economy, longer term, painful to get rid of the inflation. Trump says, look, I'd rather be getting rid of the inflation, but have Greenland, take the Panama Canal, close the border, etc. Who knows?
But let's talk about the impact of tariffs on growth. And so far, we actually haven't seen that play out on inflation or as far as global growth is concerned, or even in fact growth of the U.S. economy. Now, is this something that we still have to wait to see how this plays out, or do you believe that the threat of what this could mean both for inflation and the economy has been overstated?
So you'll probably play some tape from what I said last year, but what I thought I was saying last year to answer this question is that the tariffs are not so bad in the short run. The U.S. isn't that open an economy. India is not that open an economy. It's not the end of the world. And they don't have that big a short-term effect. But over the longer run, it does start to build up and hurt growth. I used to be at the IMF, and we were always putting in much hated structural reforms, which would, be things to make the economy work more efficiently, but sometimes break up the political hold that some groups have. So why countries don't like doing it, they go, yeah, we know we'll grow faster if, let's take India, we lowered our tariffs even faster. We understand that, but you have no idea how difficult this is for us politically in the short term. And there's no big game. It's going to make us grow faster in 5 years. Our government won't even be here. What do we care? This is the reverse, where I'm going to call it a negative structural reform. And just like it's not right away that you get the effect. So I absolutely think in the long run, economists will prove right. This is what we were saying. We were saying, look at a few years ahead when it starts to build up. But then it's also true that Trump, I would describe, instead of 2 steps forward, 1 step back, I would describe him as more like 5 steps forward, 3 steps back. So the tariffs went to here and then to here and here and here, but they ended up lower than he was saying. That's also why they mattered less.
Well, one of the big tailwinds for the global economy, and specifically for the U.S. economy, is of course this massive AI infrastructure build out. How are you seeing what that's doing for growth? How do you see what this will possibly do for growth? And what do you make of the issue or the question of whether we are in bubble territory or we're heading into bubble territory as far as AI is concerned?
I confidently say I don't know. I mean, when we have these new inventions, it's very typical. The stock market doesn't know where to go, and it's going to overshoot. Has it overshot already? I don't know. I'm very concerned about the many ramifications that are coming. So one thing Trump did when he came in is just said, I'm just going to take away all the checks and balances on AI. Don't worry about copyrights. Don't worry about intellectual property rights. Don't worry about anyone suing you. I'm going to protect you. And so they invest with confidence. But on the other hand, there's not a lot of attention being paid to safety, all these existential threats, and then the job losses that are going to come. I mean, Trump came into office saying he was going to produce better middle class jobs. And I think, in fact, we will see his presidency shedding by the millions, maybe tens of millions, middle class jobs. I look at the broader world. The World Bank released a report not long ago saying it's hard to imagine this, 8 billion new workers net. In other words, even counting the ones that leave, 1 billion new workers will need to be employed in the next 25 years.
Yeah.
The number in India, 600 million in Africa. Where are the jobs? What are they going to be doing? So, I mean, AI is utterly profound. They're cheerleading it here, but I'm I'm not quite sure where it's going, but yes, it's producing growth. But if the stock market were to collapse, and that certainly could happen, it would cause a recession.
So, so far the indication is that the spending is likely to continue, but let's also talk about what's happening as far as currencies are concerned and what the view now is as far as the dollar dominance is concerned.
Well, I mean, I'd say the same as I did last year. The dollar peaked 10 years ago. Trump is complicated, but on the whole, he's not going to stop that. China needs to break away from dollar dominance. It not only gives us control over banking, the ability to impose sanctions, we can spy on them through looking at all their transactions. Europeans had long told me they hate it, and now they hate it even more. So the US had colonized the whole world, and it's going to shrink, and it's going to cost the US a lot. We're going to end up having higher interest rates, less ability to use sanctions. I mean, Trump would say the dollar is greater than ever, and probably is going to put his picture on the new $200 bill or something like that. But I think dollar dominance isn't going to go away, but I think it's gradually happening. And you see this in many, many measures.
Mm-hmm. China, the reset that's likely on account of what President Trump is doing with tariffs on Europe, and perhaps there will be a new Europe-China reset as far as economic engagement is concerned. But how do you read what's happening in China today and what it could potentially be doing in 2026?
Well, for sure, the real estate problem that I've been talking about for years and years, and then my book, that's there. China said it would never be Japan. It would never run into those problems. It has. So for the average Chinese, a lot of their wealth, 80% almost, is held in real estate. And real estate prices have been collapsing, and they don't want to spend. The export sector.
Okay, so we're going to have to move towards the open forum. Public speakers are going to start soon in 2 minutes or so. So I'm going to have to end this video, and then I'm going to create another video, and we're going to do another recording. So please watch this is episode 16. Also watch last episode was 16. This is episode 17. The next one is going to be 18. Thank you for listening and have a nice day.